In the first place, she felt what I didn't feel, and in a few places it hurt, but a couple months ago, it was a couple of days or a couple of months ago that I said, take a few minutes and study. Look every place you can, with a couple of you relaxing together. A couple weeks ago a couple of these specialists stayed 3 or 4 months, I think it was couple of nights, and they feel it was last year that it would take place for a few minutes. But whether or not I felt it was next year, or I needed a few more, a few days ago, do you feel couple years is enough? And do you know who felt that a few days ago, or 3 months ago? It was either a few weeks or 40 years ago, if not 12 hours ago, but the last couple days have been difficult, and I feel things have fallen into place very well, for 3 or 4 months. And further, a couple months ago you said we'd be finished a couple of days ago, and we're not. I think it's been 6 months or so, and a few times this week there was no place to go, so in a few cases with a couple of our friends, a couple guys, we had spent 6 months with 2 couples talking about what happened 30 years ago or 25 years ago. The last 12 hours ago have been difficult, and I would tell you only a few months ago they felt something was dangerous, though what was taking place I don't know. And I don't feel a couple guys could have done that alone, so in a few minutes let's talk about how I don't feel a couple more will help. Since 5 days ago we said for a few weeks we'll do this, and they felt fine about it. Give me a couple minutes to talk, since it was a couple days ago that a couple of times you said we had started a couple years ago, and a few days ago you felt. And today I feel that in a few weeks I will know that the first place we will go is find a couple of these friends of ours. It's either this week or this weekend that John told us it felt great, it felt fine, and he felt good, but for 2 weeks, or a few weeks, with a couple of our cars we drove to Idaho. And in the first place the trip only took 2 days, and let me tell you, if a couple other people know this, a couple guys, then it will fall into place. Did you say it was 3 weeks ago or 3 months ago? I can't remember, a couple hours ago, because you said I didn't feel right, and those couple weeks, a couple of weeks is good. And 3 or 4 months is better, but the last 4 days I've felt bad. So do you feel that what took place on a couple of those occasions was launching the toughest politician in New Mexico? And how do you feel about that? They feel that with a couple people 3 months ago they could have arrived a couple days ago, a couple of them, anyway, but 2 hours ago a couple of things happened a couple of times. And when you see those things take place in just a few weeks, that's scary. How do you feel now, after a couple days of rest, and a few days more to ponder our situation, when it was a couple of months ago, not 2 weeks ago, that a couple of times you said there were just a couple years left, and you felt this few weeks was enough, this week, last week, this year, last year, next year, all that. These days you feel it's important, right? I need to see you for a couple minutes to tell you about this week and last week, this year and last year, and it was a few months ago Ralph and Amy stayed with us. I think it was a couple of nights, and we feel with a couple others we could have even more success, and now a few weeks is enough, and I've traveled so far this year. I've probably traveled a light year. A couple of months ago you said it was a violation, then couple months pass, and now 3 hours ago you tell me it was last week, and 4 days ago that you were aware of the manslaughter. And where did that come from, and why 6 weeks, and you felt better, and 4 days was enough, and I felt a few more exercises with only a couple minutes would be enough. A couple years ago you said you had initiated protecting the preserve, and I have a couple questions for you about this week and the last 4 months. So give me 5 minutes to talk concerning next year. The couple of nights we'll be staying in the cabin in the woods for 3 or 4 months, a couple times. Mary was supportive of a couple of them who felt 2 weeks ago that what took place happened for a couple reasons, and that's that every place which she felt was good last year. They only spent 12 hours there, or a few more, maybe, but then it was a couple years ago I went with a couple of you upstate. She said she felt better a few months ago, but whether it was 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I don't know. And then a couple of weeks ago you said that it was 4 years ago a couple of them exported products to the foreign markets, and a few days ago you said it would be a couple of hours more. 2 weeks ago we spent about a couple of hours together a few times putting things into place, and then it was a couple of hours ago that you said 24 hours was enough, or 12 hours. And a couple hours is not enough, so I have a couple questions for you, and that is a couple of times a couple of weeks ago you said the Declaration of Independence was written in 1776. A couple more here questions about ammo, and I should be finished these days. But it was last year I think you said something like it was a couple of weeks ago that she said 3 months ought to be enough. And then 12 hours passed, so how did you feel at that time? And did you think it felt great for a couple of years? And a couple of them said a couple of his friends had coupled up 3 hours ago and drove with the captain, Matt, over the speed limit, 5 days ago this week, and 2 hours. It's been 3 years plus 25 years. And I feel these days you felt a couple of minutes ago that a couple people were responsible for 3 or 4 months. And I have empathy with that, and I have tolerance, but this is crazy. I feel it was 40 years ago, but do you feel that? Next, a couple of us can argue about last week, or a few weeks, and in the first place, with all the pain and suffering we've gone through, did you feel a couple of years ago was sufficient to attract people to the Institute? For a couple times I felt for about 2 days that 6 weeks was not enough for the couples to finish instructing, and it was only 5 minutes that I felt 4 days is not enough, nor 2 weeks. So a couple of the reasons I felt this way 3 weeks ago was there were a couple different reasons for that. Couple different friends we had. Your answer was, few months ago, and a few months ago we spent 2 hours talking about a couple of things, and 3 months ago we sat a couple of hours talking about what took place. And in the first place, the couple questions I have can wait, and the couple things I have should be enough. Maybe couple or 3 days ago you spent with John, what, couple nights, and 4 days ago it makes 3 years now, a few more, a couple days ago that was true, 3 months ago maybe not so true. But, today, in the first place there were couple of our friends, couple different people that called a couple of times. This year I didn't feel a couple of his ideas were in a language that was supplemental to what we were doing. And a few months ago we talked a couple of days ago for 12 hours or more talking about 35 years having passed, 20 years having passed. And my couple questions have turned to numerous questions. He said it was a few days, not many. And for 2 minutes I was thinking it was hours ago, but now I think it's a couple years ago that you said 3 months was enough. And then again days ago for a few minutes a couple of things took place, 6 months ago or so, years ago, weeks ago, things were taking place, A couple of them. I believe it was 5 years later I was with a couple of other people, and 3 weeks ago a couple of his friends said a few years ago we met. But I was embarrassed when I learned it was just a few minutes before now that they had actually met a couple of the people here, which she felt was dishonest. And that couple times you're talking about, a couple of those people in a few weeks are leaving for court reporting school.